Hello and welcome to the Vermilion Sports Podcast. I am your host, Louis Prejean, sports editor for the Vermilion, the student newspaper at the University of Louisiana. In this episode, we are all Raging Cajuns basketball and all Vermilion sports staffed out. I've got sports writer Charles Long.
Man, this is our 50th show.
Oh, this is our 50th show. I totally
podcast.
forgot. And then we'll have 51 coming up when me and Lachelle talk about softball.
Oh, yeah.
New sports writer, Lachelle. Great to have you on.
I'm excited. It's going to be fun. Good semester coming.
Good semester coming. We're also here with sports/news writer CJ Williams.
What's up, man?
Nothing much. We're just doing a whole group chat here of sports, of Raging Cajuns basketball, because we're also here with sports writer Maddie Meyer.
How's it going, guys?
Good. I mean, we're not wearing Shawn Mendes perfume, but we're good. We're good otherwise.
It smells good.
Okay, it does smell good. I just did a smell test, but I cannot distinguish perfume from any other perfume. So I guess, yeah, it does smell good. What? Can you, CJ?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're more of a perfume
Is the Popeyes line coming out?
the Popeyes. So we always kick off the podcast with a food take from CJ. And CJ, we're doing the test runs, and you were saying about Popeyes.
You just said Popeyes. Everyone already
And
knew.
we were discussing the biscuits, and mandatory. You need some fluid to get that down.
Yeah, you need some kind of liquid of some sort.
Yeah.
Bring a gallon of water with
Okay. Favorite thing from Popeyes before we get started?
Everything from Popeyes?
Yeah. What's our go-to order
you.
here?
The red beans.
Me too.
I love the red
They're
beans.
so
Yeah.
good.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
we're on
man.
agreement on the
Yeah.
red beans.
The red beans are good.
I didn't know we'd all be there with the red beans, but okay, we're there with the red beans. CJ, are you there with the red beans?
I'm there with the red beans.
Okay, we're there with the red beans. All right, it's been a tough stretch for both the men's and women's basketball teams, and we are going to look into what's going on. We're all hands on deck. We've got beat writers, we've got all writers. It's time to get going. We're going to look at what's going on. Maybe look at some positives. I don't know. Are there some positives?
There's always positives. There's always something positive.
CJ shaking his head.
It's debatable.
Not
Yeah,
much, man.
I think there's a positive.
The
Okay.
effort is always there. That's positive.
The effort is always there.
Young squad. I mean, you can always grow with that.
Okay, so there we go. Thank you, Lachelle. A little bit of positivity.
It's buildable. It's buildable. It's just tough right now.
And if it wasn't for you, I feel like we would not be positive right now. And collectively, we would have Charlie, Maddie, CJ, me. We'd be like, oh, what is this year? But thank you for the positivity. Okay, so let's talk about the women's basketball team first. The women's basketball team now 6-15 after dropping 4 of their last 5 games. Louisiana has not been able to build momentum in their favor in the 2018-19 season. The Raging Cajuns started 2-2 to begin the season, alternating wins in their first 4 games. The team proceeded to lose 9 of their next 10 games, and that's where kind of our lack of optimism lies with this women's basketball team, because not being able to build momentum, losing 9 of the last 10 games, 2-2, and the start of conference play, we would think it would be like a resurgence and a way to pick up wins for this women's basketball team. They won 3 straight conference games, but they're coming off a 3-game losing streak, losses in 4 of the last 5, and 4 of the losses were by double digits and an average margin of loss by 20.5 points per game. The Raging Cajuns are allowing 70.7 points per game to their opponents, and for context on that, they only gave up 60.7 points per game over the course of 3 21 seasons from 2014 to 2017. All right, I have to kick the first question off to Maddie. You've been covering the women's basketball team. Do you see defense being the biggest issue for this team?
Well, their defense is good whenever they come out at halftime usually. I think the third quarter is always their best quarter for defense, but they always start off slow with their defense, and I think they just need to be consistent with it.
I mean, I think that really showed against like Coastal Carolina. I was at that game, and they gave up 26 points in that third quarter, and it was, I mean, the players are getting behind the defense. They were getting whatever they want at the rim. It was just no perimeter defense and no interior defense as well. I mean, just no defense, and that's an interesting point that you make coming out of halftime. That's where they're lacking defensively. And last season, they were able to pick up wins. I mean, Charlie, we kind of highlighted this with their defense despite the lack of production on the offensive end. Should we be or Louisiana prioritize defense over offense on this team?
The Cajuns are an interesting team this season. Like, they're picking up a lot of losses, but a lot of these losses that they have, you can trace back to like 1 or 2 quarters in these games. Like, there are typically a couple quarters in each of their losses where they get blown out. And then they battle in some other quarters, and they may win some other quarters. But for instance, I think against Troy last week, they had the first quarter they were down 29-11 almost immediately, and at that point, you're climbing an uphill battle. So there's a lot of times the Cajuns will find themselves in a hole. It's hard to kind of dig yourself out of a hole without the offensive firepower that's necessary to do that. And they have a couple good players, but not necessarily enough to be able to do that consistently.
Yeah, I mean, the lack of offense is really, it is glaring, I think, but I think the lack of defense is where it lies, giving up 70 points per game,
Right.
Not even giving your offense like a real chance to put points up on the board.
And the offense wasn't great last year, but, the defense was good enough to get them a chance at winning the Sun Belt Tournament Championship. This year, the defense is not as good as it's been in the past. And the offense has stayed pretty stagnant, so you're not going to get as many wins as you did in years prior.
And CJ, I want to look at kind of like the offense versus defense side of just basketball in general. Like, what should a team prioritize when you're building a team, when you're recruiting, and what product you want to put out on the court?
The first thing to leave a team is shooting. That's something that will leave, especially if you're playing back-to-back games and 2 and 3 nights or whatever. So the easiest thing to prioritize is defense because that always stays with you. So I would say defense because it's more consistent. Shooting is, inconsistent. Even the best shooting teams in the world struggle because offense isn't always there. So defensively, I think is what you would focus on because that's something that you can consistently have, and it's not necessarily as much skill as it is effort.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas offensively, sometimes you just don't have it. Sometimes your shot just not falling. And if you're an offensive team and you need 90 points to win every night, you're not going to get many wins.
And that goes into the next point about the offense not always being there for the Rage Cajuns. Louisiana's most recent 21 season in 2016-17, they had 3 scorers averaging 10 or more points per game. Jalen Gordon, 17.9. Former Cajuns forward Simone Fields, 14.5 points per game, 7.5 rebounds. And former guard Troy Swain, 10 points per game, combined total of 42. Louisiana just has 2 players contributing a bulk of the points, with Ty Doucette, 13.7, Brandon Williams, 11.9, and Andrea Cornier rounds out the top 3, and they combine for 34.7 points per game. So it's kind of the top heaviness of the Cajuns not getting it done as they had in the past. So, Michelle, do you think the team needs a third scorer to improve that offense? Or would you say it could be better as a by committee style?
Definitely a committee style in my opinion. I think since they're such a young group, you can't put all that pressure to say there needs to be a third scorer because right now they just need to learn how to score. Mm-hmm. And they can't even do that interior-wise either. Even the bigs that they have on the floor, they don't really run a lot of plays. And they got some length in that area, especially with some of the transfers they had. So I think offensively it has to be a committee style. They need to get into a groove. I think when Skylar comes back, of course, she's going to have a little bit more experience, more leadership to offensively get everyone the touches they need and get people in the places that they need because right now, she's not there. So it's kind of out of whack. They're kind of playing off of just the feel of it. But when you get someone like her that can kind of get the team back to where it needs to be, I think offensively they'll be better.
Yeah, and that young team that you mentioned, that those lack of seniors, there's no seniors on this roster. I mean, Maddie, is it showing kind of on both sides of the floor?
Well, with the lack of seniors, I think it shows that there's not really leadership on the court, somebody to get the team going, both offensively and defensively. So, I mean, it's the coach's call on who he wants to start, but in my opinion, there should at least be one senior as a floor leader. And
you would kind of look to Ty Doucette for leadership since she is, averaging the most points on the game, the most rebounds, and basically your standout performer, but she's only a sophomore, and she's not really asserting herself game to game because against App State, she had 28 points in that game. It was off of 25 shots, so she had 25 shots in that game. But then you go, the game after that is Coastal Carolina, she only has 7. So it's basically about asserting yourself. And that was 7 shots in 30 minutes. It wasn't like she was in foul trouble or anything. Just 30 minutes and only 7 shots. So you kind of would want Ty Doucette to kind of step up in that leadership role. But again, only a sophomore. And yeah, the lack of seniors might be throwing this team off. And you mentioned Skylar Goodwin out for 3 weeks with a foot injury. She averaged 9.6 points per game last season, had 32 assists in 30 games. This season, 8.2 points per game, but already 37 assists in 19 games, 5.3 rebounds a game as opposed to 4 rebounds a game last season. The shooting numbers were down 39% to 31, 76% from the line to 71. But Charlie, I mean, missing her scoring and improved playmaking, does that hurt the Cajuns' offense?
I mean, in a way, it's almost similar to like losing a Marcus Stroman for the men's team. You lose, the leader, the floor general. Everything runs through the player. So I think that, yeah, it's definitely a big deal. And those 3 weeks can't go fast enough.
Yeah, only 8 games left on the year for the women's basketball team. So if they were to get into a late run in the post regular season, that's where Skylar Goodwin could maybe come back, but we'll have to see. Louisiana women's basketball team 5-6 at home, 1-8 away. As I mentioned, 8 games left on the year. We'll travel to play Georgia Southern and Georgia State this weekend. Georgia Southern is 1-8 in conference, 6-14 overall. Georgia State is 11-9 overall and 5-4 in conference. Okay, so let's do a collective thinking here. Could these be a couple games where you get 1-1 or 2-0? Are we looking at 0-2? CJ, you're looking at me. I don't know what you're thinking.
I'm trying to think. You never want to give a team no chance. But they're really not in a good place right now. So you can't favor them in either game. Even the game against the below 500 team, there is no favorite in that game, in my opinion. It's just a toss-up. And then, obviously, Georgia State, you're not going to be the favorite on the road in that game. So I would say maybe 1-1 if they play really well.
Mm-hmm.
But if they play average or bad like they've been playing, no.
You'd like to see them go 1-1, but a team that's 1-8 on the road, you don't expect anything. I mean, you're just saying Georgia Southern's 1-8 in conference play, but when you have a 1-8 team on the road coming to play on the road, you don't really expect anything. I wouldn't be surprised with 0-2. I would like to see 1-1. 2-0 would be a very pleasant surprise, but we'll see.
I feel like I shouldn't have asked this question because we're all silent at this point. We're like, should we say 0-2? Should we say 1-1? No one is saying 2-0. I'm reading the room. And nope, we're going to men's basketball. So the Raging Cajuns men's basketball team coming off a North Carolina road trip that wasn't the most ideal road trip for Louisiana. They went 0-2 with a 1-4 77 loss to App State. Did I put it generous when I said not ideal?
It was awful.
Yeah.
I put it generous. Okay.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. Okay. So 104-77 loss to App State, 96-79 loss to Coastal Carolina. First time losing back-to-back conference games since the 2016-17 season. Okay. So across the table, I've got CJ and Charlie. Y'all been covering the men's basketball team. What went wrong? I'll start with Charlie here. What went wrong for the men's team in this road trip?
Okay. Well, I guess we'll start with App State. What didn't go wrong? It was from the very start, the team was incredibly cold, and App State was hot. I think that going into this, I think that the Cajuns really expected to win maybe both of these games, and they didn't really maybe take their opponents seriously. App State really punched them in the mouth immediately. They went up 17-0 in the first 5 minutes of the game, and they really held on to this lead throughout the entire game. I think it got as bad as 33 points at one point. So yeah, what didn't go wrong in that game? I thought, defensively it was the most points they've given up all year, 104. And it was just, an overall really poor performance. I mean, even all around, the offense didn't show up. The defense obviously didn't show up. So yeah, it was disappointing for sure.
And then we're going to the Coastal Carolina game. And
Can I talk about the whole trip?
You can talk about the whole. Just go off, CJ. You can do whatever you want.
For me, they went into the road trip expecting to win. And the thing I was most impressed about with the men's basketball team was their energy, and specifically the energy they have at home. And when they take it on the road, for some reason they lose it, and they lose that extra effort. And you lose it especially when you have it in your mind that you expect to win. So it's not as much about they got cold or they didn't score. To me, they didn't have the same energy and effort they had at home in the Cajun Dome when they took the game on the road. They didn't take it to their opponent the way that they're used to. And I think that's mainly because they were of the mindset that they were going to win anyway.
They underestimated App
They
State.
underestimated their opponents.
App
You
State
can't
was
do that on the road.
6-14 going into the game.
Yeah.
They obviously underestimated them, and App State really punched them in the mouth. You got to give them credit. I think they hit 11 threes in the game. It's just they played very well, and the Cajuns, I don't think were prepared for a 6-11 or 6-14 team to play that well. They scored. We've documented this year about the Cajuns defense giving up 50-point halves, right? Like that's what you hate to see. You never want to see the Cajuns defense give up that many points on one half. They gave up 51 in the first half, 53 in the second half. So they gave up 2 50-point halves in the same game. So they obviously were underprepared. They didn't take this opponent seriously, and they paid the price.
I'm wondering what loss kind of stands out to you more. Like, what tells you more about this team? Which loss, the App State or the Coastal Carolina game? Lachelle, you're watching the App State game, and it's a matter of you get off to a slow start. App State's hitting everything, but then you have a chance to bounce back against Coastal Carolina, and they still get blown out. I mean, which game kind of tells you more about the team?
That's hard for me because I don't want to put them in a box off of a road trip.
Right.
That's pretty tough because it's kind of unfair again because their home record is pretty
7-2.
good. It's very impressive actually. So again, I'm not gonna put them in a box. I don't think those two losses really define them as a team. Honestly, I think it just shows you that they are lacking certain things. But the App State loss, I think, kind of stands out just a little bit more because again, you didn't expect that. You didn't expect this big run and it be so bad. But I think it just, like Charlie and CJ said, it's just like, they just underestimated them in general, and it showed. But I'm not going to, I don't think those two losses define them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it defines them when you're looking at this road trip. It kind of, the App State game, I think going into that game, App State had one conference win.
Right.
And that's not the kind of
One
start
or two,
you
I forgot.
want. So I'm wondering,
One.
we're talking about the 50-point halves for teams against the Raging Cajuns, and you gave up a season high in this App State game. I mean, what's hurting Louisiana defensively?
They're undersized. Ever since they lost Malik Marquetti, Marquetti was the best defender. Him and Gant were co-leaders for best defender, in my opinion. Marquetti typically took the best backcourt player and shut him out. Without Marquetti, there are two backcourt players that they've been playing a lot: PJ Hardy and Russell. My bad. And Cedric Russell. They're both relatively undersized, and some of these bigger guards in the Sun Belt have been taking advantage of that. I think that one of the big things is when you look at both these games, how many 3-pointers these two teams made. If we can talk about Coastal real quickly, Coastal was a very tight game in the first half. They blew it open in the second half because they caught fire from 3-point range. I think they were 9 of 17 in the second half from 3-point. So they hit 13 3-pointers in the game. Obviously the perimeter defense is lacking in that situation. I think that honestly there's an issue with being undersized, and I think it's really plagued them ever since Malik Marquetti went down.
Yeah, I mean, with Marquetti, we're going to get to Marquetti and the effects of his injury
right.
a little bit. I just want to kind of dive a bit more into what's happening with Louisiana defensively. CJ, perimeter defense or the lack of size, which is hurting the Cajuns?
Both. I don't think the Cajuns are naturally a man-to-man team.
I agree.
I think they need more zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Coach Marlin particularly is comfortable with it, which is why he has them in man so much. But it's obvious they get caught up in mismatches. They're undersized. Teams get switches, and people take advantage of that on the interior. And then obviously in man-to-man, they don't make the proper rotations. They don't switch correctly, and they end up giving up a 3 in the corner or a 3 on the wing. They're a natural zone team. They don't excel in man-to-man defense. So they probably need to play more zone or switch up their schemes or simplify their rules in man-to-man at least. Something to make it easier for them, because it's mentally they're giving up wide open shots everywhere. So that's not a physical thing. They just don't know what to do.
Maddie, you've been covering the women's team. We put you on the sideline for the men's team. We got any takes?
This Marquetti guy sounds really good.
See, this Marquetti guy sounds really good. Thank you, Maddie.
That was a big loss.
Good segue into the Marquetti conversation. So, a big loss for them. And
big loss.
What makes you say Marquetti's a big loss for them?
For one, it's just another scorer.
Yes.
You have another scorer. So now, because, if you evaluate the team, Stroman, he's your floor general. He's there to get everyone the touches. Will score when needed, but he knows his role is to get everyone started. Then you have Gant, who is going off, but now you're putting this huge load on him to have these 23, 30-point game nights consistently. He can't take a night off, basically. But if you have Malik there, that takes a little bit of a load off. He can maybe sit a little, but now you don't have that rotation, and now you're putting a lot on PJ Hardy to try to score
Malik
threes
Marquette's
now,
injury is really
which
showing
he has
with the
been
Rage
doing. He
Cajuns
actually has
men's
been pretty efficient.
basketball team.
And then
I
you're
want to dive
asking
a
Jerick
bit
Davis
more
to
into
come
that.
out and
Is
do
it
that as well.
really showing the impact he had on this team and his leadership, or do you think his absence is highlighting problems that have existed for the men's team this year? Lack of size, lack of depth. Is it more highlighting those already problems that existed?
We're very reliant on Malik for a lot of things. For one, he's a fantastic shooter. I think he is one of the, if not the best shooter on the team. As I said, he was a great defender. He typically took the best player on the backcourt and tried to shut him down on the opposing team. And he was averaging 15 points a game. Like, that would probably be second on the team right now behind Jacqueline, who's been, as Lachelle was saying, has been going off and scoring like 30 points a game in conference. You lose that 15 points per game scorer. You lose one of the best defenders on the team. You lose a senior leader as well. And the rotation gets shorter. The team is now down to like 7, maybe 8 guys at the most that they're playing. And that increases the minutes load for some of these players. And it makes it a lot tougher to win some of these really tight games.
Yeah, I think the depth is really the biggest factor for me when you're talking about Marquette, especially asking guys that haven't been asked this before, of like Jerick Davis and PJ Hardy. They haven't been asked to fill in 15 points a game. They haven't been asked that in the past, but now you have to step in the middle of the season and do that, and because you relied on Malik Marquette to be there and score 15 points a game, guard the best perimeter player, and don't get me wrong, Marcus Stroman, great defensive player as well. So losing that tandem, a lot happens with Malik Marquette being out. And defensively, Louisiana giving up 88.1 points per game in conference play. But besides defense, what else is giving Louisiana problems with Malik Marquette that we haven't covered that you can kind of think of? I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
I think the depth is like really the biggest thing again, because you have these starters literally playing 35, 37 minutes, no break. So it's hard to, defensively, them giving up those points, to me, it's a problem, but in the grand scheme of it, it's something that I would expect from your starters who are literally maybe sitting for a minute a game, a minute here and there, and you're requiring them to keep going on these long tangents for this whole game. I mean, it's a depth thing. They have no one else to step up and give breaks. It's a depth. It's all with that.
And to piggyback off of that, I know we're not talking defense specifically, but when you have lack of depth like that, it makes it even more obvious to me that they should play more zone, because they're chasing men around.
Right.
And you're chasing guys around screens, and it's just it's easier to just hit into a zone and to save some of your energy, especially when you have a short rotation.
And that's a great point. And we're talking about rest, kind of a short week for the Rage Cajuns men's basketball team. They play on Wednesday, and then you get one day off, and you're turning right back around and playing on Friday. Mm-hmm. And against these tough teams like a Georgia Southern and Georgia State. So this rest thing could really be an issue coming up in these Georgia games. So I just wanted to throw that in there. So we're scoring margin between them and opponents, negative 5.1, 5.2 in conference play. Okay, so we talked about positives, right? Are we kind of we're over the negatives a little bit? We talked about the negatives. What should give Cajuns fans optimism the rest of the season, CJ?
They have an incredible home field event, home court.
Incredible. Yes.
And here's another thing. When the Sun Belt Conference tournament comes around, it's in New Orleans. It's been in New Orleans at the UNO Arena for the past couple of years. Cajuns fans travel very well. It's still pretty much a home court advantage for them. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. This week, upcoming week, is probably the most important stretch of the season for them, because they're playing two very good teams. Their Georgia Southern game, the first time they played them, they won by 2 points, and it was off of a late block by Jacqueline Gant on the road. I think their only road-winning conference so far. Very, very tight game. Georgia Southern's a very quality opponent. They're coming into town, and then the big game comes with Georgia State. I don't think the Cajuns have beat Georgia State since like 2013. And Georgia State is the top team in the conference right now. I think they're 7-2 in conference. I think they're beating up Texas State, who's like 6-3. But if they win both of these games with their home field advantage and get back above 500, get to the 6-5 mark, I think they're looking fantastic for the rest of the season. But this, as I said, it's a lot easier said than done. These are two very quality opponents. It's definitely going to be a really big stretch for the Cajuns basketball team.
And it's how well they play at home. And you're talking about the stretch, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, these home games, especially late in the season, kind of helping the team, not having to go on that Georgia trip late into the season like they are having to do right now. So it's how well they play at home that should get the Cajuns fans optimistic. Or, I mean, with the play of Jakina Gant, 27-10, Stroman still leading the conference in assists at 6.1. But, I mean, what's the kind of the difference that you see when they're at home versus on the road? Is it just effort?
It's definitely, I don't even want to say effort because I'm going to give them credit. I'll say,
Yeah,
they give effort every game. But when you're at home, it is a different energy. You know your spots on the floor. That's one thing with players. They know what spots they like on their home court. You know where you can get your shot. You know where dead spots are on the court as well. So they're familiar. It's home. I mean, when you're at home, I'm pretty sure you play great, don't you? Like, you play Fortnite or something?
I mean, I don't play.
I mean, shoot,
That's a hypothetical, right? If you weren't, like, legit asking me,
I don't know,
because
do you?
I don't play Fortnite.
You don't?
I don't game.
I don't.
I don't game. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we just met
So you
like a
don't
week
play
ago.
2K?
I play 2K. No,
Okay.
I mean, so I don't, like, play Fortnite,
Okay.
Call of Duty, all that.
I just want to make sure you were normal.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Because if you would have said you didn't play 2K, I would have felt alarmed.
Well, no offense to anyone that plays Fortnite. Or,
Yeah, no offense.
No, but I'm 2K, I'm Madden, FIFA. Yeah, I'm just basic sports guy, video game.
No.
FIFA? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know, CJ. I knew you were a soccer fan, so it's no surprise that FIFA was in your repertoire. So okay, just a quick thing. Charlie and CJ came over. CJ got destroyed. CJ got destroyed in 2K by me. I was the Thunder. And I forgot who you were.
I mean, if we played again, I would.
Yeah, I destroyed you in 2K. I just want to throw that out to the public.
In a few months.
Oh, okay. I mean, you have been
That
playing.
happens. That's a real thing. If you don't play 2K for a few months, that's a real thing where you will lose every game. Like, it's something you have to keep playing, like, consistent. Then, like, boom, it just comes. Yeah, I feel that.
No, I mean, he played a lot of Madden leading up into it. And then, so when we got to Madden, Charlie, I'm sorry, you can sit this one out or you can defend yourself. Because we will get back to Rage Kids and basketball, but we played Madden and CJ kind of. I'm sorry, man. Were you the Bears in that game?
I was somebody.
You were.
It was a demolition.
It was bad. One of the worst beatdowns I've seen in Madden in recent history. CJ destroyed Charlie.
I don't play Madden, dude.
I know.
I was the Chargers.
I know.
I got a pick. I got a pick 6 in that game.
You did.
For your only touchdown of the game, or?
Aw.
Damn.
No, okay, so I'm talking all this trash, but of course, if like we ever played again, I would get destroyed because I haven't played in a little while. So, I also have the Spider-Man game. That's like the farthest I'll go.
I heard the
with
gameplay
gaming.
on there is like really good.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a big Spider-Man guy, so it's like I know.
Are you excited for the new movie?
Yes. Because it's going to be a breath of fresh air after Avengers Endgame, so it'll be fine. But the new Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse, I recommend to everyone.
Fantastic.
Charlie's seen it. It's amazing. Maddie, have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
No, you don't watch
I went to
movies.
see Aquaman instead.
Wait, you went to see Aquaman instead? Okay, give us a quick 15, 30-second review of Aquaman.
Jason Momoa.
That was more like 2 seconds.
That didn't even reach like the 15-second, 30-second that I was
2
hoping.
seconds.
Okay, so the review is in from the Vermilion, Jason Momoa, Aquaman.
4 out of 5.
Jason Momoa out of 5 stars. So, I'm flustered. I can't deal with this. You went to see Aquaman instead of Into the Spider-Verse?
I wanted to movie hop, but Mom said no.
Oh my god, movie hop.
We don't
Movie
support
hop.
illegal activity on the
Yeah,
Vermilion Sports Podcast.
Sorry, we don't support movie hopping here on this podcast. But CJ, you're 2 years behind on Spider-Man movies, but that's okay. We'll fix that. We'll fix that. It's fine. It's fine. Lachelle's not even into movies.
I am, but it just depends on what it is. Like, I'm excited for Avengers. I'm excited for Spider-Man.
Okay.
Like, yeah,
All right.
I'm with the. I'm I'm with y'all.
You know what?
Okay.
Y'all are eventually going to catch up and be like, we gotta start calling Lewis out on some things because he's just exposing us on this podcast.
Yeah, you kind of did. Like,
yeah.
you just had us feel. I felt like I had a lack of like movie knowledge right there.
No, but I'm glad you're excited for Endgame and all that. It's just I know me and Charlie are the big movie guys here on the podcast. All right, even though I mean, I'm not as big into movies. You're definitely more of the movie expert, Charlie.
I think we're pretty even.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We've always wanted to do a movie podcast, so that this will be our 2 minutes. No, okay. The Louisiana men's team returns home to play Georgia Southern on Wednesday and Georgia State on Friday. Georgia Southern is 13-9, 5-4 in conference. I can't even speak. I'm thinking about Jason Momoa. Now I'm thinking about Jason Momoa. I'm sorry. Makes me want to watch the movie, I guess. Georgia State is at the top with an overall record of 16-6 and 7-2 in the Sun Belt. Charlie, get us back on track. What are we looking out for in these games?
All right, so with both of these games, as I said, the first matchup against Georgia Southern was extremely tight. Expect another close matchup. Even if it doesn't go the Cajuns' way, I think it's going to be a within 5 points game for most of it. Georgia State, as I said, we've struggled with them in recent time. They have probably, Jakina Gann, I think, is the best player in the conference right now. They have the second best player in the conference with DeMarcus Simons, who's a do-it-all guard who averages, I believe, almost a triple-double in his performances. He's been fantastic. Okay.
No,
How am I supposed to
This is
concentrate?
a future question. I'm listening to you, Charlie. I'm just saying.
Yo,
I just
Ben
wanted to
Affleck
see.
Isn't Batman anymore, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank God.
Well, we're too off track now. Okay. I just wanted to see if the Cajuns could use Jason Momoa's size on their team, but he's only 6'4", so I don't think he could help out with their lack of size problem. So
Could use Steven Adams.
this is a good question. CJ, do the Rage Cajuns men's basketball team need Jason Momoa to succeed?
Everybody needs Jason.
All right.
Can't hurt, man.
Good response. Okay, so I mean, what are we looking out for in this men's homestand in Georgia State and Georgia Southern?
Help me out, Charlie. What was the quote? The NFL quote? Just win, baby. Is that Al Davis?
Yeah.
Al Davis. Just win. Just win the games. They need to go at least 2-0, 3-0 over their next 3 home games at home. It's home stretch. They want to try and compete in the Sun Belt Conference race, which is obviously their goal. So they got to do well over this home stretch, and it can't be about their opponent. It has to be about them, especially at home.
I have a couple last notes. Georgia State. If the Cajuns win, there's a chance that the conference gets completely shifted, right? Georgia State is 7-2 in conference, right? Their first game against ULM this season, who they're also playing this weekend, was a total fraudulent win. They won on a layup as time expired. I'm going to hit y'all with this. They won with a layup as time expired on a clear travel. The player took at least 4 steps. He didn't even dribble from mid-court as time expired. The referees didn't call anything. They won by 1 point. Completely awful, fraudulent win. If ULM beats Georgia State, and if the Cajuns beat Georgia State, that 7-2 record all of a sudden is 7-4, and the conference is completely shifted because now the Cajuns are 6-5. Georgia Southern is maybe around 6-5, give or take, and now you only really need to worry about Texas State, and the whole power just shifts. Now the Cajuns need to do their job and win this weekend. If they do that, then everything else will take care of itself. So we could be looking at a total overhaul in the conference this weekend. There's a lot that can happen.
Just win the games. Defend your home court. It's just must win.
I think they'll win the games.
Oh, okay.
I actually do.
You think 2-0?
I feel like they'll go 2-0 this weekend for sure. I think they're very in control of their own destiny. I think they know how good they can be. And I think that's their Achilles heel right now because they know if we all get going, boom, it's a win. But they understand but when they're down, they are down. When no one can hit a shot. So I think they're in a good position for a lot of positive things to happen in this late conference run they got.
I have a feeling that their trip to the Carolinas is a wake-up call.
I agree.
They went and played, Coastal Carolina is a decent team.
Yes.
They started off very poorly in conference play, but they're on a 4 or 5 game winning streak right now. They've been playing a lot better as of recent. They've been playing really well offensively. But, I bet we guarantee that the Cajuns win into these 2 games. We'll go and get these 2 wins, get out, head back home for 2 big games, maybe overlooking their opponents because of this week with Georgia State and Georgia Southern, with these 2 huge matchups that they got coming up. Now, overlooking those two opponents means that these are now must-win games, in my opinion, if they want to try and make another run at a conference championship. So maybe I think they'll definitely take these opponents more seriously. If there's ever some, switch-ups, as CJ was saying, maybe play a little more zone defense, try to keep these opponents from having these 50-point halves. Who knows what can happen?
I like this wake-up call story here that we got going on. Okay. So, LaShayla's looking at us through the window here in the podcast studio.
She's wants to come in.
It's okay. You can come in. We can come in. We can have a special guest to end the podcast. This is the first podcast we've done in about maybe a month or so. So let's have an interruption here. Come on, LaShayla. I don't know if she read it. Okay, so we're getting closing thoughts here. LaShayla, no, come see. We have a special guest here on the podcast. Come see. LaShayla, what do you think of Jason Momoa?
What?
What do you think of Jason Momoa? No, okay, so LaShayla doesn't have anything.
Wait,
all right.
Jason Momoa, isn't that guy?
Aquaman.
Isn't he like Samoan? He's not Samoan. He's
He's Hawaiian.
Hawaiian.
Okay. What do you think
Pacific
of him?
Islander. What?
Do the Rage Cajuns men's basketball team need Jason Momoa on their team? All right, so she's walking out. Thank you, LaShayla. We appreciate the takes. All right, so we'll get the closing thoughts. LaShayla, do you like the wake-up call aspect? Do you like these games coming up for the Rage Cajuns men's basketball team? Closing thoughts on everything that we just talked about.
I think Charlotte hit it on the nail. It definitely was a wake-up call for them. I think that really shook them. Like, that App State game, I know had to shake them because that shook me.
It shook me too.
Like, that was ridiculous. But I think, like I say, it's better for you to get those losses now than later. And I think for them, the worst that could happen is behind them, in my opinion. It can only go up from here. I definitely think they'll be fine this weekend. Definitely gonna be some hard games, of course. Not gonna be easy, but I definitely think they're gonna be up for the challenge. I'm gonna give them 2-0 this weekend. Okay. I'm gonna give them some hope because if the worst is that they split a pair. That's it. They split.
I think the worst. I think they could go 0-2 in this stretch.
You think they could go 0-2?
It's possible. I think that possibility is always there. I think I'm kind of thinking 1-1. Georgia State really scares me. I don't think we have anyone that can really guard their backcourt. I think they got one of the best backcourts. I think both of these teams are great backcourts.
I'm going to just give them home. That home court advantage is really major for them. I will give them that. If people show up, people really get I think the pair, I'm leaning more towards the splitting the pair. But in all hopes, I'll give them 2-0.
I'm nervous. I would love to see 2-0. If they go 2-0, as I said, the conference totally shifts. And, all the Cajuns have to do at that point is control their own destiny.
Yep.
And if they win out, who knows what can happen. But
I'm going to look way ahead. I'm going to give them the 3-0 over the whole home stretch.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
We're going to be talking about that next week. Right?
I like that.
Okay, you like it. And they will play ULM on my birthday. Don't mean to throw it out there. Charlie has heard it enough, and you now know my birthday. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right, Maddie, any closing thoughts?
I think they'll go 1-1.
All right. Because Malik Marquetti, you think is a good player.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Maddie. We appreciate it. And the Jason Momoa aspect that you brought. Thank you to Jason Momoa. Thank you to the entire Vermilion sports staff. We got Maddie, Lachelle, CJ, Charlie, and myself. That will do it for the Vermilion Sports Podcast. You could pick up the Vermilion newspaper around the UL campus. New editions come out every Wednesday. You can also check out other stories and news on thevermilion.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I don't like to say that.
We're still YouTubers.
We're everywhere, people.
We're still YouTubers. So
yeah,
you can follow us on there for videos. That is all for this episode of the Vermilion Sports Podcast. As always, thank you for listening.